Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with HistoryThroughCards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. When I was a modern collector in the 1980s, I collected mostly baseball. In fact, that's really where I'm more comfortable with. The interesting thing is that I never saw a football game until the 1986 Super Bowl, and that's when the Patriots lost against the Bears. In fact, the Patriots really had no business being on that field. I'm really surprised that they got there. But that's my first game that I ever saw in the NFL. Okay, and the Patriots were not good anyway for the most part until really, Drew Bledsoe. He was okay, and then you had Tom Brady, and really like Massachusetts and New England were very spoiled up here with all of our teams winning in 20 years. And so I started to collect a lot of like pre-war stuff when I was a teenager and stuff from like the 1950s and 40s. Because I never saw really a football game, I stayed clear of the football cards of the 1980s and 1970s, and I never collected them. I just didn't know a whole lot about that era of the NFL or its players. And so, quite recently, in fact, I've been cramming kind of like a test, if you will, on what was going on in the NFL in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, kind of like doing a deep dive into a lot of the Hall of Famers. I had no idea who some of these guys were, in fact. So I have this 25-year gap, if you will, from like 2001 to 2026, where I just really haven't seen a lot of modern players, a lot of the modern teams, and I don't know a whole lot about modern cards for the most part. And at some point, I may, I just don't know. I kind of doubt it. My modern, in fact, is 1980s and 1990s cards, and that's really when I stopped, doing going after the modern stuff. Was like 1994, I think was like the last time. I do have some modern cards, but for the most part now, like I'm kind of having to go back and study up on the players that I would have grown up with in the 1980s and the 1990s, and some guys from the 1970s. And so today I came across a very interesting player that has a really interesting story, and his name is Darryl Stingley, and I've heard about him kind of growing up here and there, but I didn't know really anything or to the extent of what was being discussed in the press. Like I just it kind of went over my head. I didn't really have access in the 1980s and the 1990s to football cards. I just didn't have that access, and I didn't know who the players were, kind of like today. So before I get into this article, I want to give a quick shout out to a really great eBay dealer by the name of Monterey Sports Cards, and they have a lot of really nice stuff. And for me personally, I was looking over some of their vintage football, and I was just like, this is really cool. And I also found out too that they have a small YouTube channel as well. So I'm gonna leave a link in the description below so you guys can check out both if you want. And again, like I'm not being paid for any of this stuff, but I really do like to shout out other channels as well. And I'll give you guys a plug. If you really want to start a YouTube channel, I just say go for it and have fun with this stuff. Monterey Sports Cards is actually having quite a bit of fun on their channel. So I just want to kind of let you guys know about some of these other YouTubers here as well. So today I wanted to discuss Darryl Stingley and his life and career, and I think you guys are going to find this interesting. So here we go. This is from the Sault Star, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada, April 7th, 2007. Football's violent side finally claims Stingley by Dave Goldberg. Darryl Stingley spent more than half of his life in a wheelchair, a symbol of the violence of the NFL, where large bodies collide at high speeds on every play. He was only 26 when he clashed head-on with the Raiders' Jack Tatum during an exhibition at the Oakland Coliseum as they leaped for a pass. That play has haunted the NFL for nearly 3 decades. On Thursday, the after-effects of Stingley's grievous injury finally took his life at age 55. He was pronounced dead at the Northwestern Memorial Hospital after he was found unresponsive in his Chicago home, according to Tony Brucci, an investigator with the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. An autopsy revealed contributing factors were bronchial pneumonia, quadriplegia, spinal cord injury, and coronary arteriosclerosis, said the medical examiner's office. Stingley was a star receiver with the New England Patriots when he collided with Tatum on August 12, 1978. With one jolt, his life was forever changed. His neck was broken. He was left a quadriplegic. In time, he regained limited movement in his right arm and was able to operate his electric wheelchair on his own. I have relived that moment over and over again, he said in a 1988 interview with the Associated Press. I was 26 years old at the time, and I remember thinking, what's going to happen to me? If I live, what am I going to be like? And then there were all those whys. It was only after I stopped asking why that I was able to regroup and go on with my life, he said. His death instantly rekindled the debate over the circumstances of the accident. I've thought about that throw over and over the years. Could I have changed anything or done anything differently? Steve Grogan, the Patriots quarterback who threw the pass, said Thursday. That hit probably was not necessary in a game with no meaning, but Chuck Fairbanks, the Patriots coach at the time, said he couldn't find anything illegal or dirty about it, nor did the officials. No flag was thrown on Tatum. I saw replays many times, and many times Jack Tatum was criticized, Fairbanks said, but there wasn't anything at the time that was illegal about that play. I do think probably that play was a forerunner for some of the changes in the rules that exist today, that there are more protective of receivers, especially if there is head-to-head type contact. I think that probably preempted some of the things that happened today. Gene Upshaw, who played for the Raiders in that game, got to know Stingley well after the injury. Now executive director of the NFL Players Association, he helped push owners to provide benefits for disabled players. $48,000 in Stingley's time, $225,000 now. It was one of those things that happens that everyone regrets, Upshaw said. I know a lot of people in New England think differently, but Jack had no intention of hurting him. I saw him hit people like that a lot of times. That was the way he played. This is from the Chicago Tribune, April 6th, 2007. Far from helpless, he helped others, by Fred Mitchell. In 1978, at the height of his athletic career, Darryl Stingley lost the use of his limbs. Early Thursday morning, at 55, he lost his life. But he never lost his dignity. I never heard him complain. A product of Chicago's West Side, Stingley once was a promising NFL wide receiver. I was able to get to know him over the years as an even better person. A Marshall High School and Purdue alum, Stingley was paralyzed from a vicious tackle by the Oakland Raiders' Jack Tatum during an exhibition game on August 12, 1978. I was learning defenses and I understood what it took to get open, things of that nature, Stingley told me a few years ago. When he no longer could use his arms and legs, Stingley tried to use his influence in the community to help guide wayward youth. He formed a foundation in 1993 to help give direction to youngsters growing up in some of the rough neighborhoods on the West Side. Our young people are really getting away from us, Stingley said then. I always believe that a more informed kid makes a better decision, and I was born and raised in the same part of the city. I call it saving the lives of our youth, making a difference. It is always something I wanted to do. I was going to teach or coach, one of the other. I came up through the YMCA system, and I'm trying to provide something similar for these kids. This is our humble attempt. Stingley knew from personal experience the impact of a positive role model. I lost my original mentor, Nick Seabrook, he recalled. When I think about the time that this man took and put into me, I come from a family of two brothers and an older sister. They were all significant role models, but this was another guy outside of the family. Nick and his wife, Gloria, would take me to the Sears YMCA over on the west side. I recall being at his funeral and thinking, this guy used to pick me up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the YMCA didn't open until 10 o'clock. He would take me over there so I could go to the swimming pool or in the gym to shoot baskets. Ironically, he threw me the football quite a bit. I came out of that being a natural athlete who had been trained and prodded by this man. He always encouraged me that I could do well. Stingley remained upbeat throughout his challenging life, always greeting friends and new acquaintances with a warm smile. I last saw him on the field before a White Sox game last season. I don't know if it was predestined for my injury to happen to me, he said in 2004, but I will say that all that I have learned from my parents and all of the mentors that I have grown up, all of the things that happened to me before August 12th, 1978, prepared me to deal with it after the fact. There was already a foundation there to be strong. Reconciling his lifetime fate as a quadriplegic was no easy task for Stingley. I was at my peak and ready to take on the NFL at the time. You have to try to find a rhyme or reason when things like that happen, he once confided. It took me a while to figure out why it happened and exercise all the demons. You try to get an understanding based on your knowledge or your feel of circumstances. All I had to do was come out of the house or travel around the country. Everybody I came in contact with let me know that there was more of a purpose for me in life than looking at it negatively, so I decided to look at it in a positive way. This is an article from the same publication, Madden, No One to Fault and Tatum Hit on Stingley, by Don Pearson. John Madden was the Oakland Raiders coach in 1978 and had a sideline view of the Jack Tatum tackle that paralyzed Darryl Stingley, who died Thursday after spending more than 28 years in a wheelchair. Madden was one of the first to visit Stingley in the hospital after the collision. In a 1988 interview with the Sporting News, Stingley said Madden called for nurses to fix a problem with an aspirating machine. If he hadn't been there, I might have choked to death, Stingley said. I can't say enough about John Madden. On his radio show on San Francisco's KCBS on Thursday morning, Madden described Stingley and Tatum as good guys. Madden was upset that initial reports of Stingley's death Thursday had Tatum hitting Stingley from behind. He didn't hit him from behind, Madden said. The ball was thrown, and it was a slant by the goal line. Darryl Stingley was coming in. Jack was sitting in the middle. He made the reaction he has been taught all of his life to make. There was a collision, and Darryl was in the air and put his head down a little in the collision, and it was an accident that happened. There was no one to fault. Madden stopped by the hospital to see Stingley on his way home from the game and became a frequent visitor for as long as Stingley was hospitalized in California. Darryl and I became pretty close, Madden said. He was really a good guy, and Jack Tatum's a good guy. It was just one of those things when it happened right in front of you. It puts a feeling in your gut that never goes away. Madden quit coaching after that season. He said Tatum's book, They Call Me Assassin also was misunderstood because the title implied Tatum was proud of being referred to as an assassin. He didn't say that, Madden said. All his life he has been praised for being a hitter. One game he hits somebody and they don't get up, and now he's an assassin. That was his point. Madden added, "The thing you learn about sports is no matter what happens, you continue on." Jack continued on. Darryl continued on. We all did. Madden, just 42 when he quit coaching, continued as a broadcaster and has become perhaps the best known football analyst on TV. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame last year. Darryl Stingley's story is really one of triumph over tragedy. And when I was reading these articles, it really got me to start thinking about my own situation and a question really that my former boss of mine had asked me. And he said, "What can you control?" And I said, "Well, I can control my own actions and I can control the way I treat other people, but for the most part, like I can't control anything else." And you could be healthy one moment and something catastrophic could happen to you the next moment. This kind of gets me to thinking that it really happens to be your perspective in life that really gets you by. I think life is really kind of a series of tests, and it's not geared to be a pass fail test. It's to see how you deal in certain situations and how you act in certain situations toward yourself and other people. And again, it's not a pass fail kind of thing. And for me personally, I've had a well, rather difficult life. I think anybody who actually knows me and knows my situation would contend with that. And I'd hope to think that I have succeeded, and I think Darryl Stingley here has succeeded, even though his life went in a different direction. And I think that, again, I can only speak for myself here, that looking back on my own life, there was a time in which that the doctors didn't think that I would survive, and so they said if I did, that I wouldn't be able to walk or I wouldn't be able to talk or hold down a job or even go to college. I think it's perseverance and determination that I am here today talking to you guys. But I think that's also why Darryl Stingley's story is so important. How you come about a situation that may not be your fault, or you could be, again, perfectly healthy and have something like quadriplegia happen. And, how do you deal with that? And that's for every person to decide. I obviously can't say for you guys individually you will come out on top. I just don't know. I mean, for me, I had to really work very, very hard to get to where I am today, and I think Darryl Stingley also did. But you have a choice too, and your perception and how you look at things. Uh, I always fall, so I know that I've always fallen, but I always get back up. And when I do fall, I have two choices to make. I can either sit there and feel bad for myself because my leg always gives out on me, and certain times where I it's like a switch, someone turning a switch off, and then there goes my balance in my leg, and I fall. The one thing I will say about my disability, my own disability here, is that it gives me a different perspective on life. And my grandmother and my dad always said to me that you have to make lemons out of lemonade. And so I think, again, getting back to Darryl Stanley here, I think he did that. But it all depends on how you view the world and view your situation, and making the best of the cards that were dealt with you. So I think you can do anything that you put your mind to, right? No matter your situation in life, but it ultimately falls on you to persevere. in doing what you want to do in life. And the only one that really can, I think, hold you back from doing the things that you want to do is you. Darryl Stingley is also talking about role models. And I was very lucky. I was very fortunate in my profession and in my hobby that I had some really great people that I surrounded myself with. You have to make the distinction and the decision early on who you want to associate with. And, I'm very careful about the people I associate with. Some teenagers and people in their 20s, they're not so careful about the people that they associate with and the people that they look up to. I looked up to my dad uh, when I was a kid, and I was very fortunate to have the father that I did, even with all of his problems. He was battling some things that eventually cost him, and I'm gonna talk more about that in an upcoming video. I think that one's gonna be a very difficult conversation, but I think that's another one that needs to be had. Again, you have to be careful of the people that you surround yourself with and the people that you listen to. And a friend of mine who's in his 90s, his name is Hank. He was a former teacher, and he's got like 4 degrees, and he's a very, very intelligent guy, very sharp. And he always telling me that when we have a cup of coffee or whatever, that not all advice that you get is good advice, even if it's well intentioned. It might not be for you. And same with YouTube channels too. So my channel might not be for everybody, and maybe my message might not be for everybody too. That's a decision that you'll have to make. And I always tell you guys that if you want to start a YouTube channel, do it. Don't think about it, just do it. And because there's something that you uh, might bring to the table that I hadn't thought of, or something close to that, sports related, or whatever the case may be, something about life. And so, again, I was very fortunate in my life, despite my disabilities, that I did surround myself with good people, good friends, good family members. Again, I had a very good father. Um, I didn't always make the right decisions when I was a kid or in my 20s, and I learned from these things with the hobby that we have now. Yes, it could change. The hobby's always changing, but for the most part, I was again very fortunate that I got into this hobby and for the right reasons. I think for me personally, learning and education are very important for me, and you're always going to learn something, no matter if you're in school or out of school, no matter your age as well. And so the hobby for me, um, it was needed. The hobby isn't always a crazy as a bag of cats, right? There are some really decent things that you can learn from the hobby, and again, you can meet some amazing people, and I've met a lot of great people in the hobby, YouTubers, collectors, dealers, and the ball players too. I've met a lot of great ball players throughout my career, and a lot of these guys will say, we're not mentors. Like, I'm not a mentor. But I've met a lot of great ball players, and I've learned a lot from them. Former ball players, obviously, Johnny Pesky has taught me quite a bit. Dom DiMaggio as well, Bobby Dorr. I got to know those guys on a personal level. Bob Feller was another guy that I got to know quite well. And a lot of these guys taught me a lot, not just about baseball, but just the other side of being human, right? And that's the one thing we kind of forget about these sports players, like Darryl Stingley here, is that they're not just ball players. At some point, they retire, or in his case, he becomes a disabled person. And I can only say just about myself is that my disability has made me, I think, a better person. I have a different outlook on life, and I know again we're only here for a short time on this earth, and why don't we make the best of it, And so like it's another thing like why I really enjoy the hobby and you guys as well. So I will talk to you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.